Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Into the Pit. I'm your host, Coyote, and I have here Paranormal P.I. One corner, we got Jack Connor. Over here, we got Elizabeth Lloyd. Down here at the bottom, we got Christopher Jackson and my good buddy, Terry Crozier. How are you guys doing?
What's going on, everybody? How you guys doing?
Yeah.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about an investigation that they did not too long ago, and it was in a cemetery. And we're also going to kind of get to know them a little bit better. So who wants to start off?
Well, it was the Sandbass Cemetery or Sandbass Road. Is it actually called the Sandbass Cemetery?
Yes, I think that's what it was.
It's on Sandbass Road, and Sandbass is a famous outlaw of the Old West that was gunned down by Texas Rangers, and there's a whole bunch of stuff in Round Rock named after Sandbass, and his grave is one of the best maintained graves there, and he's buried right by one of his outlaw buddies who may or may not have also been gunned down by the Texas Rangers. And, it's this, kind of sad that this outlaw gets the very nice grave and the street named after him, but all these regular people the slaves, because it is also, there's a slave cemetery, have, graves in very poor repair, some of them.
Mm-hmm. I believe it's the oldest, it's the first cemetery in Round Rock, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it actually has like a Texas memorial marker or a Texas marker on it for history. And I was just shocked at how many graves were broken. And, some were from vandalism, but others are just time. A tree grew through someone's grave and split the tombstone in half.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we did our geobox session, our spirit box session, was in this collapsed mausoleum, a very dramatic setting where we had some good contact.
Yeah.
Which was interesting that there were even mausoleums there, because that wasn't a typical practice in the area.
Right.
So I'm not sure, we couldn't even figure out who they were because it was so weathered.
Correct.
But there were, about 5 mausoleums?
They were so badly, messed up. I mean, we really can't tell how many mausoleums were there. I mean,
Yeah.
we saw 2 that was collapsed, but you really don't know if it was like a family thing or it was just, you really couldn't tell. I mean, that's how bad it was.
Wow. Now, for our audience, just to kind of catch y'all up, we're all in the Austin area. Terry and I are actually in Cedar Park. Jack, where are you at?
I'm actually out of College Station.
Okay.
Oh my.
And
I go into Austin all the time.
And Elizabeth, are you actually in Austin or are you outside Austin?
I'm in Circle C area.
Okay.
So South Austin.
South Austin. That's where we're moving to. South Austin.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, probably in the Buda or the Kyle area.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And Christopher, what about you?
Yeah, I'm just before Pflugerville.
Okay.
So I'm North Austin, on your way to Waco, and just before Pflugerville, and then Round Rock's just a few exits away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, let's hear from you. What did you experience that evening?
Yeah, so I was surprised at how the place, the graveyard itself was really not secluded. There was traffic the whole time, but it was still spooky, Like just walking through, you could feel the different, like from the baby graveyard, which is so sad, to the slave cemetery. The atmosphere just changed, and Terry got come over by something, I don't know, and then I suddenly felt like I was kind of dizzy and yeah, it was really weird just how crazy spooky it was.
We with me and Elizabeth were sitting under the gazebo, and we were all talking,
Hmm.
and I was talking, I think, to Christopher, and I turned back to my right, and I saw that orb in the tree. At least I thought it was an
Yeah.
orb. I don't know if Elizabeth, if you picked that up or not on your.
I think, because I was pointing the camera where you were pointing to, and I didn't see anything on camera, but I need to go through that end section again because I think we might have caught that.
Wow.
Because that was,
Yeah.
That'd
you
be
know,
cool.
I've seen many strange things, but I've never actually seen an orb that size. I've seen small ones,
Wow.
you know, just bouncing around in a tree, or I pretty much don't know what it was doing, but
Yeah, and we caught a lot of
that was
orbs.
amazing. Yeah, you
We
know,
genuinely
and
did.
the weirdest thing is when I put, I shared a page, to my Facebook page. You wouldn't believe how many critics that are out there about orbs.
I know.
Well,
I
and
mean,
I'm actually one of those people that's
Yeah.
a critic of orbs because you really there's so much you have to basically go frame by frame to make sure what it is. Because a lot of times in older buildings or vacant buildings, when people are going in, they'll stir up the air in the place. They'll get dust.
Yep.
When you're outside, there's tons of insects. But from what we've seen, if you see something that's going against the wind that has no set pattern and it's not necessarily floating, it actually kind of goes in its own direction. Typically, you've got something,
I mean,
but
Yes.
I'm
if you
I'm
look, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry, you first.
If you look at the video, you can clearly see that one orb was actually, I think we were facing north. One orb was actually going west, and I clearly see all the other little
Mhm.
insects going totally the other way. So
Yeah.
I mean that's I can definitely give that a little credit, validation on that one.
Yeah, all the ones that I highlighted in the video there, like I slowed it down so you can see it comes from nothing to
Yeah.
there. It comes forward and then back, and yeah, like we got a
Yeah,
lot of bugs, got a lot of dust as well, but those for sure I
Yeah.
think
I mean,
are paranormal.
they really stood out, and I mean, let's say if it was a bug, I
Mm.
mean, you could probably see the actual bug itself. I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
but these guys here, no way. I mean,
Well, the way the light reflects off of a bug when it's in flight,
Mhm.
you can, especially if you slow it down and you can zoom in. A lot of times you can see somewhat of an outline, especially where the wings are.
Mm-hmm.
right.
And so you can tell, uh, that way a lot of times. But
I if you guys want to, Elizabeth, if you want to send him the clip of that orb, so I mean
Mm.
we can actually see that would be great.
Yeah, I mean I can send it right now while we talk.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I'm very critical of orbs myself. I don't put a lot of validity in them, but then there's sometimes, man, you'll catch something that, I mean, you could tell it's not a bug, it's not
Right.
dust, that kind of thing. But
Hmm.
to me,
But
it's more rare than people actually know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Most orbs are dust particles.
Exactly.
I mean,
But
well, how do you
some are not.
explain? How do you guys explain that one that was in the tree? I mean, if we're talking about a bug, I mean, bugs is generally low level to the ground, but this thing here was literally maybe 5 feet from the ground, maybe 6 feet from the ground.
I tend to think that if you can see it with your naked eye, a glowing ball of light, that's probably a real orb.
Yeah.
well, and then
And
you know,
being that high from a tree.
right. Well, and also if it coincides with an event. So a lot of times, if you're filming in a place, and let's say, like Coyote here, if he was walking around and he felt a pinch on his right side, and he remarks about that, and then we check the footage later and we see a little orb go around him at that same time, that's pretty strong evidence for the orb being part of that.
It's really interesting when you think that it was Elizabeth and Terry that saw the orb with their naked eye, and they are both. Correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, but y'all are both sensitives. Y'all can sense things beyond this world,
Right.
and y'all have had experiences, direct experiences with, if I can call it, the other side.
Yeah, that would be
Correct.
a little bit more credible if you actually saw it. I mean, you know what lightning bugs look like around here. You know how they work, and you can tell the difference. You know, if you're from Texas, you ought to know the difference.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, to take the lightning bugs out of the equation, it was far too cold.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's right. It's
Yeah.
not that time of year.
Yeah, so
No,
it
was like
it was.
It had to have been what, maybe 50 degrees out there that night.
Oh, it was like
Right.
38, 39.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I mean,
It was
I-
cold.
Yeah, it was cold.
It was really
I had-
Now,
Hell, I had 2 jackets on. That's how
Yeah.
cold it was.
well, I mean, so this cemetery had a lot of LEDs and things like that
You did.
at the gravestones themselves, but they didn't have anything. You know, all of that was on the ground, so there was nothing in the air. You know, I checked the trees. I found one tree with wind chimes, but the wind chimes were matte and made of wood, so they didn't have any reflective component to it.
Mhm.
And you know, just going back there and checking for security lights, for you know, anything like that would have done that from that angle. So from the angle that they saw it, there was nothing in that area to do that.
Yeah. You know, I go through a lot of our footage, and I'm very meticulous about it. And I could say the one time that I couldn't explain an orb was you could see the orb fly in, it went into my back and came out of my chest.
Wow.
And it's not going around or anything like that. It actually went through. So that was one time I'd say I could not explain that one.
Mm.
Yeah, we went to Buffalo Billiards once, and we caught an orb that moved very erratically, especially because the place was turned off. So there was no AC, there were no fans going, and we had this orb that it was going in this weird trajectory, then stopped and went in the complete opposite direction.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah,
And
there you go.
so I went over, I checked all the vents, I stomped around, tried to get any dust to fall. You know, they had these streamers hung up at each of the AC vents.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single one was moving, but I still tested, you know, did the whole thing, and it seemed, you know, pretty legit. And then, you know, when we went through the footage, you know, we went through and we zoomed in on it, slowed it down, did everything we could, and it didn't have a particular shape. So that seemed like a pretty good orb
Pretty legit.
It was
grab.
at Buffalo Billiards that we got that great cold spot. I remember that you were, you know, you were hot, you were sweating, and then all of a sudden you passed through this cold spot, and you became very, you know, very cold, and you were cold to the touch. I could touch your nose, and you were.
I was so I'm a big guy. I run hot, you know, and so I'm walking around, and suddenly I get this really, really cold feeling on my arm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, there must be a draft or something. But the cold was so spot specific. And like, I'm talking, there had to be 10, 20 degree difference, because I felt it through my hoodie. So I had everyone come and grab my arm and feel it. And it was just cold to the touch. And then it spread, and my face got super cold. I mean, we're in an enclosed building. We're all wearing, heavy clothing. There was no draft. Everything was locked up.
Mhm.
But this cold that just stayed in that spot and just really chilled me to the bone. We couldn't really explain, and still can't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it
I
was,
think that was a legit paranormal cold spot.
yeah. Well, back at the graveyard, the other thing that was kind of spooky about it is that some of the graves, the tombstones are gone, so there's just a base, but the grass has grown, so you can't see it. So at night when you're walking, you're tripping over people's graves.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you'll be walking and suddenly it'll dip
You'll just
and go
sink
back
right
up,
in.
and
Yeah.
you'll realize that you walked over a collapsed grave.
And
Yeah.
you know what's so weird, you guys? We only covered a half of that cemetery.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even go down actually east of that cemetery.
Yeah.
You know, so my thing is I'm planning on going back, and make sure just everybody's heard. If it's something or someone has something they want to tell east of that cemetery, I think we should catch it. I think we should go back and see if there's something going on over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity that we probably didn't catch because I feel like there was so much going on around us that we were just kind of overwhelmed.
Yeah, overwhelmed big time. I mean, 'cause with me getting ill like that, I've never, I can tell you guys, I've never, experienced
Wow.
anything like that before. I mean, I don't know if it was just me being in the slave portion of that cemetery, but I mean, if anybody, I mean, if you ever been you don't want to be overwhelmed like that. I mean, it just hits you. It hits you like a truck. If you ever got hit like a truck,
Well,
and I told Chris, I'm like, man, I got to get out of here. I mean, I don't know if I can take this anymore. So once we moved just south of the cemetery, I started getting a little bit better, but I still felt kind of nauseated at the time.
yeah.
And that's why I think I gave Chris my camera, and I just had to take a deep breath and just catch the moment, because I've never even experienced anything like that before in my life. So yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Wow.
for those critics out there, you just have to experience these things to know what we're talking about. People can say whatever they want, but unless you've actually been there and done that, they just don't understand. I've had something attach itself to me before, and it can be painful. Very
What did
painful.
you do when it attached itself? How did you get rid of it?
Well, the funny thing is when it actually happened, I didn't realize that is what had happened. I had a stomach pain that just was overwhelming, and I went to 3 different doctors. I had every test under the sun you can imagine. All they wanted to do was mask it with pain pills, and I'm like, look, I'm tired of taking the pills. I want to get rid of this. And I talked to a medium, and she told me, she says, you need to go talk to somebody that knows how to dispel these things. She says, I promise you it's going to happen right away. And luckily for us, we had somebody on the team who was actually experienced in that. And so I just called the guy on the phone, and just as soon as he started talking to me, it was gone and never came back.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. Because that is a danger in this field. You can get
Exactly.
attracted.
Well, and so that's the problem, right? Because when people become the barometer, there's no way to really quantify or to collect that data. And so it becomes very much a thing that people must experience. And the thing for me that that actually gives it credence is that, okay, you have all these people all over America who are ghost hunting. And you could probably say, let's say even 90% of it, people are just ill. There's an environmental factor. Well, you still have that 10% that you're like, okay, you know, this person's perfectly healthy, perfectly sane. You know, you scratch off all the things on the list and you're like, we're left with these stories of people who have no reason to even give these stories say, I have become genuinely ill and something attached to me. And so I believe that that leads a lot of credence to it. And you hear about it all the time that people will go on these ghost hunts and then, you know, weeks later, they'll be still sick until they talk to someone or able to get rid of the attachment that happens. So it's, you know, to me, it's a double-edged sword. So it's definitely interesting. Can't quantify it, but we know that something's happening.
Well, you know what's so weird for me is, you know, I do this by myself, you know, and I've been to many grave cemeteries, and I've always do a small prayer before I enter. But that particular night, you know, I was so overwhelmed of going to have an investigation with you guys, I forgot to do my routine.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So,
Yeah, I do something similar. I envision myself surrounded by a golden light that protects me.
And I did not do my prayer that night. And I figure, well, you know, maybe I didn't get my little shield around me, like Jack was saying, and to protect me. So I figured that had, you know, that might have been, you know, come into play on that part, you know. So I think I kind of shot myself in the foot on that, you know. But
yeah.
Well, you know, somebody that's not in the paranormal field like we are, and they have no idea what we're talking about. When you have, say, a necklace or a ring or even a gem or something, when you put that intent in there for protection, that it actually becomes a talisman. It becomes powerful. It actually does help protect you, and it's all about the intent.
yeah.
And so if it's a ritual, you know, anyway, you know, when a priest uses a cross, he puts his intent in that. That's why, you know, that's an object that they use to dispel things that are evil. And you know, just the intent is what I'm trying to get at. It, whatever you put it into, that is your protection. So
It's all about your will and focusing your will.
Exactly. Now I'm going to take a step back for a minute, and I'm going to ask, I'll ask Chris first. Does everybody in the group have a role, or is everybody just kind of, everybody does everything?
No, we pretty much are broken up into the roles. So, like, for example, myself, aside from being the resident skeptic on everything, I also am the one that I've seen pretty much every paranormal TV show made. And so, you know, when people are like, oh, do you remember when this happened? I'm like, yes, I do. Because I've seen all of that stuff, because it's always been a fascination of mine. But also, I like getting angry at the TV. So I'll watch a show and, like, you know, they'll bump a door themselves and they'll be like, what was that? And I'm like, you did it. But so that became a hobby of mine. But I've always, and also since being a little kid, I've always loved monsters and stuff like that and folklore. So I have read a ton on, you know, just mythological creatures, stuff that, you know, deals with the Bible, that most people don't read about, like the Gospel according to Enoch.
I've got that, actually.
Yeah. So reading that, and there's the gospel according to Mary, which is Mary Magdalene, and there's even a gospel according to Judas. That at one point was canon. So like the gospel according to Enoch was canon, and then they were like, well, this is too scary, we have to take it out. Because what people don't realize is that within like the Christian dogma, there's a lot of mysticism that no one talks about because they don't want people to think they're silly.
Right.
Which too late, but all religions are looked at as silly at one point or another. So I don't see why that should stop them. But it's fascinating. But that's kind of what I bring and my role. So I love researching, doing experiments. We will do experiments to see if certain theories are correct or not correct. And then we also have, then we have Elizabeth, which she is our medium, and she is in touch with things that we don't even have names for. And she is our sensitive and our guide to that whole side. And also being a Reiki master and everything else helps keep us healthy and protects us. Then Jack, I doubt there's anyone, I challenge anyone, we could even make it into a game or a game show to see if anyone could beat Jack on UFO knowledge.
Oh,
He knows he knows more about UFOs than I think the aliens do. And they're both, I just have absolutely fantastic partners. I'm so happy that we met, we clicked, and we just formed the team. And I've never, for myself personally, worked with, two other people that I've liked as much and have been impressed by. So I'm happy.
Oh, Jack, I've actually had Jan Harzen on the show. From MUFON. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. And so, Elizabeth, you are the medium. I guess then on my team, I'd be the large.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think I'm a medium. I have got a lot of developing of these so-called, mediumship skills. But I've been seeing and hearing ghosts since I was a kid. I was raised in Scotland, and it's just normal for us to be like, oh, there goes the lady in black walking through the house. It's just normal. And I'm a Reiki master, yeah, and I studying angels right now to try and get to know that world. And yeah, I just hope to develop my skills to call myself a medium one day.
I got you.
Yeah.
So, Jack, what all do you do besides fix UFOs and things like that?
Yeah, I like to fix UFOs. We get a flat tire, they call me. But yeah, 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't believe in any of this. I was a total skeptic, non-believer in anything paranormal or spiritual or alien all my life. I've just, been a scientific, thinker in that way. And, if there was evidence of something, I would believe in it, but I didn't think there was any evidence. But then a few years ago, those Navy videos of UFOs came out. I think you hopefully you know what I'm talking about. The Pentagon came out with those, released those from the Pentagon.
Tic Tac videos.
Yeah. So they were released by the Pentagon program ATIP. So I started doing a lot of research into UFOs, like a lot of research. If there were aliens running around our planet, I needed to know about that. And so I dug into that heavily, and it took me a lot of research before I actually committed to believing in it. But that led me, the study of ATIP especially led me to Skinwalker Ranch. And that's where the Pentagon program started, was in this crazy paranormal ranch that has all sorts of phenomenon on it, like ghosts and cryptids and portals and all sorts of weird stuff, shadow people. So giant wolves, you name it. They've had it at Skinwalker Ranch. And when I got to the part where the Pentagon had studied ghosts, I had to do a lot more research because I had never believed in ghosts. I've seen a lot of ghost movies, but I did not think that ghosts were a thing. But I did a lot of research, and I was convinced they were a thing. So I looked for somebody to help me explore that mystery, and then I started getting into like near-death experiences. If ghosts are real, what are they? Are they actually souls of people? So I started investigating that, and so now I'm a believer in the human soul. So a couple of years ago, I didn't believe in any of this stuff. Now I basically believe in all of it.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is also our group, we're tackling the phenomenon as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
The cryptids, UFO, and ghost. And ghost is a catch-all for spirits and everything under the sun. I believe it's all connected. And the thing that when you look at it, you go, okay, so you could make some correlations geographically by going, oh, this person has seen a UFO and the lady next door has a ghost. Or a lot of the people have experiences of all three. For me, the common denominator is people.
Right.
What is it about this one person that they have all of these experiences? Because typically 99% of the time someone has an experience, they have more. They don't just have the one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that delves into the realm, once again, I love research. That delves into the realm of human consciousness and how much of our intent plays a part in these encounters. Do we will these to happen?
Right.
And so there's a study that goes that actually shows that human consciousness affects simple systems, and even there's a group it's the Global Consciousness
I've heard of them. Yes.
Collective. Yeah. So it basically shows at any one point in time, they can basically take a measure of the world's, consciousness if something has aggravated it or happened, like the funeral of Pope John Paul II, 9/11, the coronavirus. They, with their instruments, these researchers actually can see that when we all share this emotion and we all are going through this together, we globally can affect machines that are all over the world. And so it's absolutely fascinating because the first article I ever found on it about one person using their consciousness to affect a machine came from the CIA.gov. It was an unclassified article on the research they had done. So, I mean, you look at that and you go, okay, so we know it affects that. Well, what else does our consciousness do?
Mm-hmm.
And, what kind of things interact with it? So it's, that's what we've been looking at and, developing theories about how the ecosystem would work, for ghosts and spirits. If it's multiple dimensions, if it's just a veil, if we occupy the same space. There's a lot of scientific research that actually leads credence to a lot of these things. Like for Jack, we were talking the other day about patents. You can look this up. Anyone can. There's Navy patents on anti-gravity.
Wow.
Like, to get a patent, you have to have a working model.
Yeah, I actually had a tweet exchange with Deep Prasad a couple of days ago. I don't know if you know Deep Prasad, but he's a very well-known guy that works in the realm of quantum computers. And he also happens to be an experiencer. He's an alien abductee. And so he talks about this openly on Twitter and online. And he came out as skeptical on the PIUS patents, on the Navy UFO technology patents. And so I thought that was very interesting. I wanted to know what his insight is and why he was so skeptical of those patents. And it turns out, after I had exchanged a few tweets with him, that he had written an entire article about it. So I went and read his article about being skeptical of these patents. And basically, you know, he's saying our technology isn't there. There's no way we can do this. But which is totally true as far as my understanding of our current science goes. But I think that he may be missing, you know, he's much smarter than I am. I don't want to step on his toes, but he may be missing the mark on the whole, the government's involvement in alien technology side of it. And they may have been reverse engineering alien technology for a long time. And in fact, I think they are, and they have been. And so these patents could be a way of covering that.
Well, they have a patent that literally says it warps space-time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have to supply the math to that, and they have to have whether it's just a demonstration or something, they have to have enough proof that it works to get the patent.
Well, here's the thing, guys. All this, you got to have some kind of energy. You got to have some kind of, you know, some kind of base for all this to work. You know, so when element 115 came out, I'm like, that right there, that's the key to it all.
And people thought that was fake for the longest time because that was brought up by Bob Lazar.
Brought up by Bob Lazar, but let's think about this for a minute. Now, when we talk about UFOs, we can talk about Roswell. We can talk about, you know, all these other things, but you got to remember, guys, all this started back at Wright-Patterson. Everything that was technology, you know, as far as everything that came out has come through Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Well, the thing that gives credence to the element 115 is that a scientific journal was actually published. We can make element 115. It's just currently we don't know how to stabilize it.
Right.
And it is the material that when energy is put through, it can make a gravitational field or something to bend space-time.
But this is a question that I have. If they didn't succeed in doing that, why is it on the table now? It's actually on the element table.
I think people...
We know that 115 exists now, but we haven't been able to stabilize it. And it is Bob Lazar's contention that once we have figured out how to stabilize it, that we will be able to use it as fuel or a power source, if you will, for these craft.
Well, and so the argument is that to the public, it's unstable, we can't do it. In reality, they already have had a way to do that.
It's already been done.
Yeah.
So,
I think they've had ships for a while.
I never used to believe any of this, right? Especially about UFOs. I'm like, why come to Earth? We're all just a bunch of animals. Like, what would you want from us? But then when you really, and I'm talking about really looking, I'm not talking about eyewitness accounts. I'm talking about physical evidence. It starts adding up.
Yeah.
There are too many things that keep happening. Like Bob Lazar said it years and years ago that there's element 115. No one believed this guy. His life was destroyed, everything. And then suddenly, oh, by the way, guys, we do have a 115 here.
Wow.
Like those kind of coincidences and things keep happening. And there's only so many times those can keep happening before you're like, okay, that can't be coincidence any longer. You run into Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is typically the right one. So are you either going to believe that there's going to be thousands of coincidences that are unconnected, or simply that it does exist? I mean, that's the simpler answer.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is just stuff that people you can Google this. Any of you, anyone. Yeah.
Well, I've heard of the element, but I don't know that much about it. Is this something that is like a renewable energy? Is it something that could really, power like our electricity in our homes and our vehicles? I mean,
it's something that can change the world.
Well, that's probably
right
why.
now it's an unstable, heavy element, and we can't do much with it. But if we could figure out how to stabilize it, it looks like its potential is vast.
It's unbelievable.
Well, so the deal is it would not create power. That when you apply power to it is where it shines, because it creates a field where you can have anti-gravity.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
Power goes into great detail about it.
Right, and
fields work.
And then on top of that, you have another patent that is filed. You can look all of this up for a room temperature superconductor. So apparently, using these superconductors that you don't have to cool, you can also achieve anti-gravity. So it's just, I don't know what the play is. I don't know. Like I've looked into it. You can't file theoretical patents.
No, this was an actionable patent. They had to demonstrate it to the patent authority before they could get the patent.
Wow.
Right. So like with all patents, you got to show your math, you got to show your work. So, I mean, does that mean we're on the cusp of something being like, oh, guess what? We all, like Back to the Future, you all have hoverboards now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my take on it is that, that this is building towards some form of disclosure. I think that either we're ready or close to being ready, or else they just can't keep a lid on it for much longer. And so they're starting to gradually mainstream it. They're allowing some of this stuff to get out there, and it's going to be a gradual process of disclosure. And but eventually something official is going to come out, and we're going to see more and more fantastic technologies, hopefully.
Well, it's my understanding, and I could be totally wrong, but this is what I understood from the $600 stimulus package that we were supposed to get.
The UAP task force report, yeah.
Yeah, they actually put in there that they would have to disclose all this stuff, and it's been signed off by the president. When Trump was in office, it was signed off on.
Yeah, totally. So 180 days from the time of that signing, there is going to be a report coming out, an official government report that is going to have a classified version and an unclassified version. And we are going to see the unclassified version. Hopefully, and we don't know what they're going to give us, but I'm sure it'll be something.
And just to be clear, this is one of those things, one of the very few, if only things, to have bipartisan support.
Right.
The two people pushing for it, one's Republican, one's Democrat, and they both are pushing for it, and that actually should tell you something too, especially right now.
Yeah. Well, from the very beginning, this has been a bipartisan thing. Well, I say from the beginning, but I mean from the time of Harry Reid, the Democrat, he authorized these 3 Congress people to form a commission or committee on whether or not they should fund a group or a program to study this, and that was a group of 3 Congress people composed of both sides of the aisle. And so going back at least that far, it's been a bipartisan thing. And I would imagine going back much further, because this transcends any party lines.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Harry Truman was the first one that wanted to disclose all this stuff, and it got pushed back.
I think, okay, we're going into some weird stuff, but
Truman has a lot of weird stuff.
Well, this could go back, even further. This could go back to like, well, you've heard of the giants? Have you ever explored the issue of giants?
Yes, I've don't know a whole lot, but I do know.
Yeah, I mean,
the
I'm not an
subject.
expert in giants either, but I do know that there were giant skeletons that were commonly found and even reported in the newspapers, along with
Wow.
pictures and witness accounts, all throughout, well, until the end of the 1800s and maybe even the early 1900s.
No, and then they disappeared.
And then all of a sudden they disappeared. There are no more reports. The giant remains that were in the Smithsonian disappeared. You can still find pictures of them. Very compelling, corpse of a giant.
But you guys got to realize one thing is there are people way above the president that the president can sign off on whatever he wants. That's what he does. But there are people above him,
Yeah, no, totally.
Basically, what they're going to do is they're going to put out what they want. They're going to say what they want and say what they want. And it's probably going to be far from the truth. So basically, nobody will actually ever know except all these people that are running these black budget programs. These are the people that have the power, they have the money, and and it's pretty much yes or no with them. So the president can say whatever, or I'm going to sign off on this, and you got to tell us so much and so much. But I mean, how much can he really put out?
Well, the best example that we can give you is Bill Clinton. So Bill Clinton was very much involved in the UFO community. He wanted disclosure.
I mean, he wanted total disclosure, but did he get blackballed? He got blackballed on that.
What happened is, the story is that the Secret Service came to him and they said, if you sign off on this, we can't protect you.
Right. I heard that. Well, heck, he was married to an alien, so
That's so bad. That's so bad. But
she was one of my favorite first ladies.
But anyway,
well, technically, yeah, because hey, I pretty much think that she won the election, so he was like I don't know, they had a weird relationship.
Look, but so what's actually interesting though is almost all of our presidents, going back all the way to George Washington, are reports of them having some sort of UFO encounter.
Yep, seriously.
George Washington thought it was an angel, what he met.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have Roosevelt. Also had quite a few things happen.
Christopher Columbus had a UFO sighting.
Okay,
Yeah.
What about the one that at George W. Ranch, Bush's ranch, which the radar picked up UFOs heading toward his ranch? They scrambled like 6 or 7 F-16s to chase these guys down and run them off.
So him, and then one of the most famous ones was on the campaign trail was Reagan.
Yeah. Well, even when Jimmy Carter was president, he actually came out and said he saw a spaceship, which,
Wow.
That should be a career ender right there. Thinking, oh, this dude's a nut.
Absolutely.
That took a lot of guts to come out and say what he said. But
And there were witnesses. There were like 6 witnesses or something to that event.
I mean, Reagan,
Right. And
Reagan was giving out every hint and under the sun. And then here comes Bill Clinton, and he's trying to get this stuff out there. And it's funny.
And then he gets shut down hard.
Yeah. I mean, he comes out, he's ready to do it. He gets shut down.
Or he was read into the program and told to be silent.
Yeah. And then when they go on the talk show circuit, they make it out like it's a joke. Well, it wasn't a joke when he was talking about it before.
Well,
It's a joke now.
I mean, so let's talk about people calling it a joke. I mean, look at the 50s and early 60s. You had UFOs. This is all fact. Like, this is all things you can Google that happened. In DC, they had UFOs fly over the Capitol building and the White House. They scrambled jets, and it happened for several weeks.
and yet people still don't believe. How can
Well-
you see
Well,
something
that's very
so
deliberate. The government didn't want us to believe. They stigmatized this issue, and they had people whose jobs it was to mislead the public and to make this a subject of ridicule.
What's the CIA guy, Jack?
Yeah, you're talking about Dottie, Dirty,
Well,
Dottie?
and also,
Richard Dottie.
Yeah, Richard Dottie.
Yeah, something like that.
also, you know, Project Blue Book, until this guy actually came to his senses and realized that these things are really happening. I mean, Project Blue Book was set out to discredit everything that was, you know, that was going on in the skies.
Yeah, they were
There
told
was-
to discredit
until he came-
everything. That's the thing. They were
Right,
told to
and-
discredit everything.
Until he decided, well, hey, what I'm doing is not right. People needs to know. People has the right to know on what's going on up there, you know. And that's when the government decided to do what they did to him, and they had to, you know, they had to get rid of him, you know. So
Well, there was a actual second task force that was working in parallel with Project Blue Book.
Oh yeah, all the good stuff got kicked up.
oh yeah.
Yep. And so, well, in even Project Blue Book, they admit, like, they show, like, out of all of these thousands of cases, there's like 700 we can't identify.
But
All the rest, they, swamp gas.
well, yeah, the swamp gas thing was listed as one of the ones that they could identify, but that was actually a highly corroborated sighting. That was a real, very good UFO sighting. Nowhere near a swamp, multiple witnesses. So a lot of those that are in the, bunk file of the Blue Book are actually good sightings. Now, I don't know what the ratio is exactly on how much of the bunk file is not bunk, but I was really impressed that the Blue Book said that of all of their cases, only 1% were hoaxes. 90% were misidentified.
Yep.
But only 1% were hoaxes. So I thought that was really interesting. I wonder what the ratio is in the paranormal field. Oh, and to get back to what fascinates me currently about UFOs, other than the fact that I think there are aliens here and that we're working with them, which is pretty fascinating by itself, it gets really weird because a third of alien abductees are also near-death experiencers. They are people who have been to the other side and back. And so there is a deep spiritual connection or consciousness connection, however you want to look at it, to the alien presence.
Right.
Well,
I mean, that's just.
I know we had got aliens because hell, we were trying to build a wall to keep them out. So
I'm one. I'm an alien, but I'm legal. So
Yeah, my wife is a legal alien too.
What I find
Yeah.
fascinating is we started out talking about ghosts in the cemetery. Now we're talking about conspiracy theories and UFOs.
Well,
I love it. I love it.
Well, it's because they're all connected. I mean,
Yeah, no, they really are.
I mean, people who talk about Bigfoot, there was even a show recently, season 1 of Expedition Bigfoot, right? They go looking for Bigfoot. They have this really cool idea to follow caribou migration because they believe that that's a primary food source.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out there looking for Bigfoot, and they see a few things here and there, and they think Bigfoot's there. They find a UFO. They see an unidentified flying, very bright object. They're very, very far from civilization. They're not in any flight paths, and they just have this giant ball of light show up. And so that's not an isolated situation. You have tons of people who go squatching, and they encounter something else. One of the ladies that is on the show worked in gorilla habitats, and she actually found a new species of monkey.
Yeah.
And so she has this story, though. She was camping out there, and she had a dream, or she thought it was a dream. She woke up because she heard children giggling and laughing. So they start walking around the next day, and she finds a child's cemetery from back when it was, expanding out west.
Wow.
And she couldn't explain it.
Yeah.
And this is someone who, she's a scientist.
Right.
And that shook her. So you have ghosts, cryptids, and UFOs all on this one thing. Like, what's happening?
Oh, you get that a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a huge crossover, and Bigfoots are seen aboard UFOs. You wouldn't think of a Sasquatch as being an alien, but at least they seem to work with them or something.
They could be a naturalist. They just want to go out and live free and naked in the woods.
And
Sounds good.
Some people think they're scouts.
and be fruitful and multiply.
That's yeah.
Go out and have mini Bigfoots if you want.
But you
Hey.
go to Appalachia and you talk to the people out there, and they'll tell you there is some strange stuff in these woods.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you're finding it everywhere. You could go anywhere and you ask someone, have you ever heard of something strange happening around here? And you get 99% of the time, yes.
The Jersey Devil.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that is
That's another conversation.
Yeah.
that's another conversation where she was like, let this one be a devil. And well, it came out as a devil, and that must have been a difficult birth. But wasn't that like the 13th son or something? Or was it 7th?
Something along that line. I've heard different stories about it, but that seems to be the
Look,
one that most
I'm
people
telling you,
accept.
that they make me pump out 13 babies. I'm going to try to get revenge. Just saying.
If I was pumping out 13 babies, I would have turned into the devil.
Yeah, exactly. But
I'm cool with it as long as it's C-section.
but you have that's just the thing. You have these stories of these entities for a very long time, and of course, human beings have used stories as a way to cover things that they didn't understand. But there are some stories that still hold up. So about people being spirited away, people disappearing without a trace.
Do you?
And we mean that literally no trace. Like at Crater Lake, there was an artist that stayed there during a blizzard, and they found his campsite. There were no footprints. There were no signs that he had left. His things were there. They had no way of explaining. It's like something plucked him up.
Well,
So-
you guys do. I mean, you guys do realize that the Appalachian Mountains is probably one of the most unexplored regions of this country. I mean, I don't know anybody who ever wonders or explore those mountain ranges because it's so dense, so heavily wooded that nobody wants to even bother with it.
Well, nature has reclaimed a lot of it because the coal mining has pretty much died.
Yeah.
And so all of these areas that used to be buildings and everything else, the trees have just completely taken over, and the wildlife has come back. And if something were going to hide, that's basically a jungle. The Appalachian Trail, that's like
That would be
as
the
thick
perfect
a forest
environment.
as you can get.
I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because the Rocky Mountains. I mean, if you're going up in the Washington State, Oregon, it's pretty wooded. But as far as Denver to Utah and all that, I mean, you could probably spot something walking on a mountain 20 miles away with some binoculars. But the Appalachian Mountains, that's a totally different story right there.
Yeah,
Well, they also have a species of ivy. It's like Japanese. It's like Japanese ivy is some sort, and it creates a perfect canopy between all those trees. You're not going to see anything until you're on it.
Hey, that's where the best moonshine is.
Hey, I'd be scared to go up in those mountains because I might run into the banjo boy. So, but
Who's the banjo boy?
Hey,
you don't remember Deliverance?
Oh, they are.
Oh.
You always have to be careful.
I
But
have to say something real quick, and I don't want everybody to think that we're leaving Terry out, but Terry actually has his own paranormal group, so that's why everybody else got to say their part in Paranormal P.I. Terry does have his own group. He's actually went on in this investigation with this group, so
yeah, of course.
just want to make that clear. So nobody.
Terry invited us, so it was. Thank you, Terry. It was amazing.
Terry was our leader.
He found us and he brought us out there. Yeah.
Well, I didn't find you guys. You guys are well known already. It's just that you guys are.
Yeah.
You guys look so lovable and huggable. I decided to invite you guys on an investigation. Yeah, I mean,
I am a mix of Santa and a teddy bear.
Yeah, Chris is pretty huggable.
Well, what's so weird about it is each one of you guys with Paranormal P.I. had, like you say, has your own. When you come into investigation, you guys all have a part to play. Me as being an individual, I'm all that part in one. So I have to be the skeptic. I have to be somebody who was like, well, I can definitely see that. So I'm all these things in one. So when I get to the house, and I have to, just like Elizabeth, when she went through all that footage, I do it for hours on a time, and I might not catch everything, but some of the things I do catch is unbelievable. But hey, I really commend you guys, for doing what y'all doing, But as far as
I mean, you're doing a ton too, man. Not many people go to that many cemeteries. Like you
I
do.
wouldn't want you walking around those places alone.
Well, like I said, it's just something about them. I feel at home when I'm in a cemetery. I mean, because I've been to some of the creepiest cemeteries in Central Texas, and people ask me, well, why do you go that place? And I'm like, dude, I feel so comfortable. I feel more comfortable there than I do at my own house.
It reminds me of one of my favorite movies, quote, safest place in the world to be, because everybody's dead.
Right. I'm more scared of the living than I am the dead. So
and what's so weird about it, if you sit down on a bench and you listen to the dead, everybody has a story to tell. If you got that sense of hearing where you can just hear everything and you can sense everything, you can sit back and you can hear some very amazing stories of the dead. And all you can do is just say, wow. I mean, either I'm happy for you or either I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
But that's how I really feel about it. Everybody has a story to tell.
That's right.
I was that kid who would just be found in the cemetery always, every day.
And I know with COVID going on and everything, people are really not going to let you do residential or commercial investigation. So
True.
why not hit up every cemetery you can find?
Makes sense.
And then with me being the type of guy I know that I am, hey, I love a cemetery, and
Well, what's fascinating about that is that we've talked about it, and everybody has a place where they feel the best. Some geological location that they feel good. Like for me, I'm not happy unless I'm surrounded by trees. Not that I'm not even an outdoorsman, not even close. But there's something about having all that life around me that I love. But I hate the desert, can't stand the desert, and can't stand barren locations. And even Austin with all its cedar trees is kind of tough because I'm originally from Houston, where it's nothing but giant oaks and a swamp. Houston, you go up 3 stories, you look out, you wouldn't believe it, but they have more trees than anything. And so that's always made me feel good. And so maybe your happy place or the place of your energy or however it works is a cemetery.
Yeah, I feel that.
For me, it's the water. I got to be by water, and
Yeah.
here in Cedar Park, I have to say the dinosaur tracks are probably my favorite spot. So you're from Houston originally, Chris?
Yeah, I'm originally from Houston, but I went to film school in San Francisco, and I got to spend some time in that redwood forest.
Well, we lived in Oregon for a while, and we went to the redwood forest all the time.
And it is there. You're in a fantasy world. I mean, you got trees the size of houses, and you're just like, how is this here? And it's just so majestic, and there's just something. I don't know. I just feel there's certain places I go to, and I just feel really good. Like it gives me energy. Like I like it a lot. And I've known people that are like, I have to be by water. I've known a ton of people like that. And so I don't know, as I said, I have no scientific anything for this or how to quantify this. And once again, using the human body as a barometer, but I feel the best when I'm surrounded by trees.
I'm going to throw a name at you, Chris. You know the Robert E. Lee Ganders?
I know Robert E. Lee, but
you know, you've never heard of the high school, Robert E. Lee?
Oh, you mean they just call it Lee, but yeah, in Houston.
The Ganders. Well, I'm talking about in Baytown.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know because there was a Lee High School in Houston that moved to an even larger location. But yeah, not the Ganders. What's up with the Ganders?
That's where I graduated from.
I'm from Baytown. You were in Baytown, okay.
Bel Air.
Oh, you're from Bel Air?
Yeah, well, I was born in Houston, and then we moved to Austin. My mom and I, they got divorced. But when I was 16, I was tired of living with my mom, so I moved back in with my dad in Houston. And so the last 2 years of high school, I was in Houston, and I graduated from Bel Air.
Oh,
I love Houston.
Yeah, and so I went to
I hate
private
Houston.
School.
I hate Houston with a passion.
I love Houston. I absolutely adore it.
It's a big, ugly city, but man, it's got good food and fun places to go.
And anyone can challenge me on this. That's fine. I mean, you're wrong, but that's fine. Houston has the best food. There are more.
I can challenge you on that. I got the best food. So
there are more minorities than majority. So at any time, if you want any kind of food, whether it be Japanese, Korean, or Ethiopian, also Houston doesn't sleep. Here in Austin, everything shuts down at like 9.
I love it. I'm in bed by 10.
Especially in Cedar Park, man. Everything shuts down at 9 o'clock.
That's true. That's except for Walmart.
H-Town represent.
I'm sorry. I grew up outside of Houston.
Well,
I can't stand it.
Houston is a good place for urban exploring.
That's a good place to get bugged, too.
One of my earliest ghost hunts, before I even believed in ghost hunts, I was dating this girl who was into all this stuff, and we broke into Jefferson Davis Hospital, which is this big, supposedly haunted, very dramatic, very atmospheric hospital in downtown Houston, but it's like in a dead zone. There's nothing there. All there's like a police station like right across the street, and we actually had buzz us. But so we broke into the Jefferson Davis Hospital, which is this cool, big, creepy, neat place. And she was seeing ghosts everywhere, but I didn't believe in any ghosts back then. It was just a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
But about urban exploring, that was really cool.
Well, Houston has the #1 medical center in the world. Thank you. Also.
Oh, that's good.
That's true. I mean, the Methodist Hospital is probably one of the best places to go to in Houston.
Is that where I need to go when I get rid of
By the way, Jefferson Davis is abandoned. I didn't break into an actual.
It's abandoned.
Yes, he broke into a working OR. That's what he did.
Just wanted to throw that out there for.
Anyway, I want to thank y'all for coming on. And
Well, thanks for having us.
we're just gonna stop the conversation right there, but it's not over because I'd like to have y'all back so we can do this again because there's
Yeah.
lots more to
That's
talk
fine.
about.
Oh yeah.
So
Sure.
thank you all for coming on, and thank everybody that supports us and watches us and listens to us on podcasting channels. And
Well,
appreciate
Cole, I got
all
a
of it.
question for you.
Sure.
What is all those pictures on your walls?
Oh, those back there.
Yeah,
I
is that
have
your wife?
Dustin Pari right there, Samantha Hawes right here, Amy Allen right there, Dave and Steve are right there. And then back over there, I've got their autographs, but that was from our honeymoon. So we got to meet them.
Nice.
Michelle
Well, I'll tell
and I
you
in
what.
there.
You need to get pictures of all of us and put us on that wall.
You know, I actually was going to ask y'all if y'all could get some pictures together because I like to put you on our wall of fame back here.
Sure.
You know,
Well,
that's
I'll even
that's-
autograph it for free.
That's awesome. Who wants to be
That's-
next to William Shatner? Who wants to be next to Stan Lee? And who wants to be
I'll
next
take
to
William
Henry Winkler?
Shatner.
I'll take William Shatner.
Oh, man, I wanted to do Shaq.
Oh no. Henry Winkler. I'll take Henry Winkler.
Nobody wants to be next to Stan Lee. I mean,
Well,
come
I
on.
will.
Oh, Stan
Yeah,
Lee,
I
love
met
Stan
him.
Lee,
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't hear the Stan
Yeah,
Lee.
Stan Lee, legend.
I'll fight over the Stan Lee, but Henry Winkler, I'm okay with. That's a good second.
Well, once again, thank everybody, and we will catch you on the next one.
Po boy.